over to you.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Virtual Hybrid Face-to-Face, establishing multimodal relationships with students with disabilities. I'm Jennifer, and I have with me my partner in crime, Sarah, and we're excited to work with you today. Sarah, do you want to say hi?
Hello, it's nice to be here.
So, yeah, COVID, right? We thought maybe we would be done with virtual teaching and learning, but certain variables or variants have come up and it's made it just a very, very shaky ground at this point. So we figured this is a pretty applicable webinar to bring to you today. For starters, building relationships doesn't have to be painful, but which one of these pictures is more you? The guy on the left or the woman on the right? Go ahead and put in the chat, the Q&A, left or right or neither or both, just so we can see that you're listening and out there. We, both Sarah and I are used to doing webinars now, and we love to have participants just ask questions as we go along or make comments. So please feel free, you're not interrupting us, to ask a question. We'll stop and be able to address anything that you need clarified or any additional help we can be for you, okay? And now this one, you might have seen this before, but I feel like this is very relevant for teachers. So what we see is first, second, and third place. What your students see, what your parents see, you on these pedestals, being great teachers, doing your best every day. But underneath it is what you don't see, is how passionate you are, how focused you are, how much desire you have to make a difference in this world. Failure, training, hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, all of it, all of this is what, as educators, we face in front of our students, their parents, their families, your communities. And so it's important, psychologically speaking and just emotionally speaking, to acknowledge that there's a lot more to you than what other people see. And you're doing jobs that are incredibly important and incredibly complicated. So keep this visual somewhere when you feel like you're not making a difference, because you are. Now, first thing, when establishing our relationships in virtual or hybrid settings, I use community of inquiry theory because I think it is the single most important theory for hybrid and online teaching. So community of inquiry theory involves teaching presence, cognitive presence, and social presence. Now, I've done some research with fellow researchers across the nation, and we looked at community of inquiry theory in face-to-face and online courses. And what we found, it didn't matter whether it was face-to-face, hybrid, or online, teaching presence was the single most important factor for students. In fact, it was so much more important that it really overshadowed cognitive or social presence. So cognitive presence is that how students access the work, the instruction, the assignments, the subject matter, the content, how they connect that content. Social presence is how they connect with each other. Social presence is how they connect with you. But teaching presence, that's the one where if they feel safe and secure in a classroom, face-to-face, blended, hybrid, or virtual, that's the one where they're really meeting, you're really meeting their needs. So what does that look like? Teaching presence. How do I do that? Sarah.
Teaching presence. You need to be organized, be straightforward, and be real. You want your students to feel like you're there, especially if you're not when you're being virtual. So get to know them by doing some icebreakers and different introductions. So what will that look like in different grade levels? And elementary, maybe show a picture. What do you look like? What do they look like? What do you like to do? Share it in the classroom. You want to make sure that they have a connection to you, and they feel like they know who you are. Middle school, maybe something like my favorite random thing, since middle schoolers can tend to be very random. They're kind of stuck, sandwiched in the middle between the babies and then being a little bit older in high school. High school, a good icebreaker introduction could be, if I had a superpower, it would be, and get them to be more involved that way.
And I actually use that even with my online master's students. That is one of our icebreakers at the beginning of the term. And you'd think master's students, why do that? But they love it. They love to interact with each other. They love games. They love connections using humor. So that's one I've really used. Now, one thing I want to add is what I can do picture is have the student draw a picture and then just crayons and markers, and then flip over the Chromebook and take a picture of the picture and upload it to whatever LMS you're using, be it Seesaw or Canvas, or you can email it to the teacher as well. But a lot of those LMSs and Chromebooks, iPads all have cameras where you could take a picture of the physical thing that they're doing and share it with the class.
There was also some research, stop me if I'm wrong, that you were going to share with students who felt when their teachers were organized.
Oh, yeah. So we did another study. COVID has been great for me as a researcher. I love doing research, and I've had a little bit more time since I've been working from home. So I did a bunch of studies in the area of special ed. But this research that I was telling you that we did, looking at cognitive presence and cognitive, social, and teaching presence in online, virtual, and face-to-face environments. One of the interesting data points was that the way the course was organized in the LMS became an indicator of strong teaching presence. So for example, there's a capstone course that I teach. I didn't create that shell. A colleague of mine created the shell in Canvas, but I teach the course. So the organization of that shell in Canvas, then I get the credit for being organized, even though I didn't create the shell, which is amazing. So when you're thinking about teaching presence, it's relational, but it's also organizational. Make sure there's enough white space. Make sure your fonts are straightforward. Make sure directions are clear and not overly wordy, because those kinds of things really help students relax and be able to get through the content instead of feeling lost in the LMS.
I do have one question before you move on. Heather wants to know if you have a way to share the research related to the importance of teaching present.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just published in, actually, this just came out, ta-da, in Distance Learning for Educators, Trainers, and Leaders. I have it right in front of me. It's volume 18, number 1 of 2021. And if you email me at the end of this presentation, I'd be more than happy to send you a PDF of that article. Thanks, Heather. So, videos. I'll be the first to tell you, the very first one to tell you that I never did videos until COVID hit. I always thought I looked funny. I wanted to make them perfect. I don't know. I just felt really uncomfortable in front of the camera. But what I didn't realize is COVID hit and they're virtual and they feel lost. The teaching, the physicality of teaching and that relational aspect is gone. And so I started doing weekly announcements and then midweek encouragement. And several students at the end of the term said, I didn't realize how much my students need to see me until I learned how much I need to see you. Because I feel like as educators, we really became shepherds during the pandemic, and we still are that. And they look to us as a consistent person in their lives. So I started doing videos, and I want to share with you my rules for myself because I think this helps take the pressure off. So I do videos for announcements. Here's one of them. Hey, everybody.
Welcome to Swing.
We're so glad you're here in our spring term. This is my granddaughter, Autumn. Her sister, McKenna, is somewhere. Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know. Anyway, welcome to spring. It's going to be a great term, a really quick term. But are you going to tell them to do their homework?
Yes.
Tell them.
Do your homework.
Just like Autumn does. Do you do your homework?
Yep.
Every day?
Uh-huh.
You work really hard, huh?
Uh-huh.
So you're going to grow up and be a doctor.
Uh-huh.
Good. So from Autumn and me, here's to a great term. Yay! So you can see that Autumn really loved it. She's wearing my doctoral cam and she loves to wear that because she feels very professional. My students feel like they get to see me in my office at home with dogs walking around and a 2-year-old running around in the background. And she gets to work on her articulation skills, which is something that she's been working on for a while now, which is why, I don't know if you noticed it, but you heard yes. She's working on her articulation skills. So it kills a couple of birds with one stone as well. Assignment instructions in Loom are also, they love this. So I use the screen in screen so you can see my face. So this is week 6. And you can also share really looking at your final unit plan. And I left some examples in the lesson. Remember, they're from a previous iteration of the course, so you can get a general idea, but you won't get a specific idea of what you need to do for your unit plan. I did go through it step by step in a previous announcement, so you can look at that, and that might help you. Yeah. So they love to have the step-by-step visual instructions, so they see my face, they see the explanation through the LMS. And then encouragement and humor. I can't say enough how important this has become in online teaching. So I made a point about using encouragement and humor. And I wanted to model that for you by doing this small recording in my BChat, because I have done announcements and recordings in my BChat on purpose, because sometimes they just need to see a more relaxed, humorous side of you. Doctoral students, master's students, high school students, middle school students, elementary students, TKs, they just need to see that you're a person. So a couple of the books that I like to do on read alouds when I'm just saying, okay, we have had enough right now. We've done a lot of work and now we just need to take a breath. One of my very favorites is If You're Afraid of the Dark, Remember the Night Rainbow. It's super encouraging. And it's a good read aloud, and it teaches if-then skills while dealing in tragedy. So quickly, if tomorrow the sky falls, have clouds for breakfast. If night falls, let's see what that one is. Use the stars for streetlights. If the moon gets stuck in a tree, cover the hole with a strawberry. Cover the hole in the sky with a strawberry. If you have butterflies in your stomach. Okay, so the full video, if you're interested in watching it, is part of the presentation. It's embedded in here. So let's move on really quick. Tools, I use Loom. I use Zoom for meetings. I like Zoom. I use Loom for video, for announcements. I love Loom because you can just show yourself, you can show your screen, you can show yourself and the screen. Here are the rules though, before I take you to the actual Loom video. Look into the little green light and record in one take. If you noticed, I was looking down in the video that Autumn and I did. I was looking at the little recording video instead of looking right at the little green light. It's better if you look right at the little green light because then your students feel like you're looking straight at them. Don't do do-overs. That is the biggest rule. You'll waste so much time trying to be perfect. And I want to remind you that if you're teaching face-to-face in a classroom and you make a mistake, you don't send all the kids out of the classroom and bring them all back in so you can correct your mistake. No, you use that as a teachable moment, you self-correct, and you move on. So the same is in a video. If I'm making a video and I make a mistake, I say, oh, I made a mistake, and I move on. I just self-correct and move on, because that lowers the anxiety level for your students, right? I don't have to be perfect. Then they don't have to be perfect, because I'm modeling being a human being. And that's a really important lesson for all of us to learn, right? Keep it short, spice it up, record outside, wear a weird hat. I've been known to record underneath my hummingbird feeders outside, because they love to see the hummingbird fighting, buzzing back and forth over my head. It's super distracting, but they really enjoy that. They laugh a lot. In my kitchen, just different places, because then they're seeing that I'm a person and they're feeling less isolated. So embedded into this is also a video that I created in Loom on how to use Loom.
It's Jennifer Corda, Dr. Jennifer Corda, again from Azusa Pacific University. And today I want to create a Loom video to tell you about Loom. Yay! If I can't tell you about Loom using Loom, then why should I tell you about Loom at all? So here's the deal, guys. Loom Pro is free for teachers. So I'll show you the website right there. You can Google Loom Pro free for teachers, and I'll provide the link in the newsletter as well. So don't worry about it. And then you sign up you get your account verified by putting in your school email. They have to know that you're a teacher or a professor, and you put in your school email. They send an email to your school email. You verify that, and then you have Loom Pro free forever. That's what's so great about it. It's not just free for, I don't know, till COVID ends, which might be a long time anyway, but it's free forever. You have the account forever. And what I love about Loom is that I can record my screen and a picture of myself, because my students really appreciate seeing me and seeing the mistakes I make, because then they can be human too and make some mistakes, and it's fine. And I can show them the application I want to explain, and I can just show them, I can just take a video of me.
Okay, so this one is also embedded. If you want to keep it, save it, and use it with any teachers in your life, that goes over how to use Loom. I repeated myself.
We also have done a presentation on Loom and how to effectively use it in AbleNet. You can search for that as well if you want more information on how to use Loom.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yes.
Sorry. No, that's great. It's AbleNet U through YouTube. Houses all of the videos that we've done in the past. So there you go. Thanks, Sarah. You're up.
All right, cognitive presence. So we've talked about teaching presence, and now the cognitive presence, providing multiple ways for your students to understand content. So just like you would do in a face-to-face setting, in virtual and hybrid, you also want to make sure that they have multiple ways to access the content, whether that be visual, like in the classroom, you'd be writing on a whiteboard, you might use different colors. You are not just standing up and lecturing. You need to make sure that you're providing the visual as well. You do need, I'm going to skip text-based, sorry, you do need the audio too. So you do want to use something like Loom if you're recording yourself, or you want to be live. For your students who are auditory learners, they need to be able to hear what they're learning. They need to be able to see it. Also, going back, text-based representation, you want them to be able to have something that they get to look at, keep. In a classroom, we might be standing up at the front, writing on our whiteboard or whatever, Elmo or whatever you have in front of you. And then they're going to have something as well. My students always had a text they were marking up, but something that they get to see. And then you also want kinesthetic representation, like this teacher over here who's able to manipulate the Post-it notes, move them around. You want that. So in my classroom, a lot of times kinesthetic was them actually marking up their text and using highlighters and pencils and on the actual text. They also did things on the computer now. And what's great is we have so many more tools to be used. If you have a piece of text that you're using on the computer, whether you're using Google Classroom or whatever, there's so many tools now that they can use to manipulate and mark up on. But you want to make sure that you're providing multiple ways so that you encompass all the types of learners that you have in your classroom. Next, social presence, the last one, you want to connect in real ways. So anytime I think of social presence, student to student, student to content, student to teacher, I think when we teach reading to younger kids, we want them to connect text to text, text to self, text to world. That's, for whatever reason, that's just the reading teacher in me. That's what I think of. But you want the students to connect with each other, to their content, and to their teacher. There's going to be lots of times. I took online courses back in the day when we just took a course online and you read through the content. You had to post your one discussion question and you got your points and you moved on, and there wasn't real interaction. There wasn't a real thread of discussion. And there wasn't really, it was more of me satisfying the requirement for the teacher. You want to make sure that your students are actually able to have conversations, however that would look like, with each other, because kids a lot of times learn more when they teach one another, and we want them to be able to interact with each other like they would be in a face-to-face setting. And they might all be on Zoom interacting and having some sort of discussion questions. You also want to make sure that they're being able to do it. They're able to connect to the content. And that could be, again, in a Zoom room if you're online, and bringing it back to whatever you're working on. Non-preferred activities in preferred ways. That means, and we're going to give a bunch of examples more on the next screen, but students who prefer to do an activity one way, they like to write. That is the only way they like to do anything. They don't want to participate in a discussion. So taking those I'm not going to talk, that's my non-preferred is activity, and helping them to achieve that in a preferred way, focusing on their areas of strengths. I know that it's easy. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to give you a little story about that, if you don't mind. So I had this student on the spectrum, autism spectrum, and he really didn't like to do grammar at all. And I would say, and this is face-to-face, obviously, but we can transfer the face-to-face. I'll hopefully transfer the face-to-face experience to online. So he didn't like grammar. And he came up to me and said, Miss Corda, I don't want to do the grammar. And I said, well, Alex, you need to do the grammar. And, we hit heads, and I tried to get him to do it at recess, and he didn't do it. And it was a crash and burn day. It was not a good time. I called mom and dad that afternoon, and I said, can I please just try something a little creative with Alex? Can you trust me to do that? They said, sure, do whatever you want. I said, okay. So the next day he came up to me and he said, I don't want to do the grammar. And I said, Alex, you don't have to do the grammar. And he stopped and he looked at me and goes, I don't have to do the grammar? No, you don't have to do the grammar. You can read. You like to read. I don't have to do the grammar? You don't have to do the grammar, Alex. Go ahead, go back to your seat. You can read. You like to read. He looked really confused. He went back to his seat and sat up, perched on it like a little bird, the way he likes to do. And maybe 15 minutes later, he comes up to me and he says, Mrs. Corda, I want to do the grammar. And I looked at him square in the eye and I said, Alex, no, you don't have to do the grammar. At which point he smiled, because at that point we had entered into the game, right? The game is, I know you, you know me, we get each other, and it's going to be okay. And I'm not telling you that fixed everything and that every day was great, because that's not the way it is with students with disabilities. But if you have one moment where you can touch relationally and make a connection, then the other days tend to be easier. So in an online setting, perhaps you don't want to have, the student doesn't want to write. Okay, you don't want to write? Okay, why don't you record it in a voice recorder and then post the recording in the LMS and we'll listen to it. We can work on writing in different ways. We don't have to work on writing today for all things. If you just want to tell me a story in a voice recorder, let's do that. So we use the notion of using the student's strength to help them learn and to buffer their challenges, right? So when you do that, it takes a little doing because you have to find out where the student's strengths are. And usually they're hidden down in the arts, in music, in dance, in sports, in places that are not really what we focus on as much in education anymore, sadly enough. But if you can have them use this innovative technology, a voice recorder, a sing-along, something that will connect them to the content using the way they like to learn, everyone stands a better chance at making strides in great learning. I've seen that over and over again. And so I hope that helps. And we're going to go through more ideas right now.
Yes. Also, talking about, you skipped, I think. Oh, no, you didn't. I'm sorry. But can you go back? I'm sorry. Just one last. One other way to provide choice, especially online and in classroom, is to provide menus, also known as choice boards. There's lots of, Pinterest and Teachers Pay Teachers, and there's a book differentiating using menus is what I had in the classroom. They have them for math, social studies, they have them for language arts. You can create your own, you can make them virtual, but it allows the students to choose instead of you always telling them, this is the activity we're doing today. We had our lesson, now everyone does this. By providing choice, especially for students who are very determined to only do their activity in a certain way, they have the power to choose, but you control which activities they get to choose from. So sometimes that also helps by saying, here's 9 different activities. You need to complete 3, maybe a tic-tac-toe or however you want to have them complete the activities, but you get to control what activities they get to choose from. So it still gives you the power, but they feel like they're in control by being able to choose which activities from the choice board. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, this is me plugging in for all of the webinars I have ever done. We've also done a webinar on menus and creating them virtually, which was really cool. We created one using Google Slides. I believe I created it on Google Slides and I made it interactive. There's different ways to make a choice board. They can just see a copy of it, just like you would scan something and put it on your screen. But you can also make it interactive for them to be able to manipulate on the screen. If you're looking for what is she talking about, what are these menus, choice boards, and like I said, they also have some awesome books out there on how to use menus and choice boards in the classroom. But the presentation we did specifically talks about how to create menus and choice boards for students with disabilities and creating picture menus, not just words, especially for those students who need to see, younger students, pre-K, kindergarten, first, who can't read quite yet, still giving them the power to choose. So be thinking about using a choice board as an activity for your students who need non-preferred activities in preferred ways.
Right, and we also show you a choice board that gives students autonomy in the breaks they get, when they get the breaks from their virtual classroom, and the breaks they choose to take. A video game break, a walk outside break. There's a choice board example for that as well. We can't stress enough how much getting to really know your students and giving them a sense of autonomy helps them connect in and feel like learning. Yeah, thank you. All right, so here's reality. How we and our students feel on any given day. These are real children that I am the proud Grammy of, and I have parent permission to show the pictures. So happy. Are you happy? Do you ever feel like that? I wish I felt like that more. Sad. You're just very, very sad. confused. This is like, McKenna's in my sweat, my jacket, and she's like, why can't I go outside? It's just very confused. And this one is a perspective maker for me. So there's little McKenna screaming, and I got that picture and I said, oh, well, she's really upset. She's mad. She needs to be fed or changed. And my son said, oh no, it's singing practice, Mom, which it cracked me up, because really you could look at that picture either way, right? You could say she needs to be changed or she's going to singing practice. It was funny, but it lightened the mood. And I think oftentimes it's good to take a step back from our own emotions and confusion in the world of face-to-face and virtual and hybrid, and it's changing all the time, and Delta variants and say, oh, maybe that's just singing practice. So we have 4 more for you. There's.
And then there's why, what? Wait a minute, please make it stop.
And anybody, so let's see if you're all still there. I think you are. How many of these 8 pictures resonate with you on any given day? Let's go back to the first 4. And then the second 4.
When I used to think about online learning, I think I was more of the why. I just didn't want to do it because there was no teaching presence when I did it, in college, long time ago when we had some of that, but I just didn't want to.
And most of the a lot of the students don't want to, but it has to be done. And so we're working on ways to make it less isolating. So how do I connect consistently? Now, this is based on, I did with a team several years ago now, a grounded theory research on looking at, now it slipped my mind, looking at exemplary practices of special educators that are integrating technology very well. There was no theory that could define how a special educator integrates technology really well in a classroom, in a virtual, online, face-to-face or blended setting. And one of the things that we realized was they do naturally follow the constructs of TPACK, technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge, where the classrooms that I observed, it was mild, mod, and mod severe. The students would come in, they knew where to go, they knew what to do. There was a procedure that they followed, and that falls in line with TPACK. Then there was this other piece that we had a hard time framing. As we discussed it at length, we disagreed at length, and we love each other. So it was a great thing to do. But we finally stumbled on intentional serendipity, which is actually a theory that researchers use for career readiness in young adults. And it's based on happenstance theory, which is a 10-year longitudinal study on how people make their own luck. Who would have thunk it? I almost fell off my chair when I learned of that. So the 4 dispositions of intentional serendipity. And I've done 2 other research projects during COVID with hundreds of special educators now, and to a person, all y'all, yes, you do. In any given day, you demonstrate great strengths in persistence. You're very persistent. You keep trying no matter what. You're very flexible. If something works 1 minute, you assume that it might not work the next minute, might not work the next day. So you maintain this real ease and flexibility in your classroom. You take risks, right? Because you need to remember some technology tools are not always going to work. You try it. If it doesn't work, you just say, oh, well, we're going to try something else. You're optimistic. So you're persistent, you're flexible, you take risks, and you're optimistic. So now, again, I'd like to hear from you, and you do have this in you. When do you make statements during the day that give evidence that you are persistent or flexible or take risks or are optimistic? you can just choose to put one in there. You can put them all in there. You can say, Jennifer, that's not me at all. But usually when I find special educators that say that's not them at all, they say, I'm not optimistic, but I'm trying. And somebody said that to me in a focus group last spring. And I said, just you saying you're not optimistic, but you're trying is optimistic, because you're trying and you're persistent. And she laughed. Anyway, I'd like to see some statements, if you feel like putting statements in there, on what kinds of things do you say that align with any or all of these things? All right, we got a silent bunch right now, Sarah.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Okay.
From Heather, I have, what if we tried this?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I also have, let's try it in a different way. I'd say, I don't know if I have a statement, but man, I always felt like during the day, and I guess this would be risk taking, but like I'd get choked up on spelling stuff on the board, and I would just write it out wrong and wait for some little third grader to correct me. But I just, even if I would just try, sound stuff out, show them how I was trying, and I make mistakes and I'm an adult.
Yeah.
But so that they know that I'm wrong, I can be wrong too.
And Heather, if you want this research, just let me know as well, because I can send it to you. So.
Well, we'll show your email at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about it now. We've given you a lot of theory. We've given you a few scenarios, but let's put the rubber where the road is. What about difficult to reach students? How do you reach an oppositional defiant disorder, ODD student in an online setting? Sarah?
Yes. So I have an example, and this wasn't in an online setting, but I want to share the example anyways. For my oppositional defiant student, the first thing that came to mind was, what did I do that he liked? So he didn't want to do anything all day long ever. And just a lot like your student, he wanted to read. That's all he wanted to do, was read. And so I usually would give him an activity that he could do that involved somehow that he could read. And a lot of times I would say, if he was just the kid that he didn't want to do it because he didn't feel like doing it, and he just wanted to read his book. And it ended up being that I told him, you can do everything you want. If you want to get done everything right now in this moment, then you can go read for the rest of the day. And he would, because he had the power. And that helped me, allowing him to have that, kind of like you said, just with the grammar example. But we also did charts, like checklists, and he felt accomplished when he could check off something that he did, and he got to choose when he wanted to do it. So it was, again, not a choice board, but he did the activities and the things I needed him to do, but he had control over when. I said, I don't care when you do them, they just have to be done today. Here you go. And a lot of times he would just do all the work. He didn't want to listen to the lesson, and he didn't want to do this. And it was either he didn't learn anything, or he did it when he wanted to do it. And I think for when you're talking about students who are online, especially students who they weren't going to participate in the classroom, what makes you think that they're going to participate online? Is giving them the opportunity. I give them a checklist, give them something they can see. Okay, I have to do these things. He would get like little smiley faces when he completed the activities, stickers. It was something that just, he responded to that. And he had, his expectations were the same to get things done, but he got to do them in an order that worked for him and for his, his IEP. So using the non-preferred activities in a preferred way is what saved me with my student with ODD. And I think that could be totally applicable online. You're just using the same principles, but you're doing them online.
Right.
And then we have ADHD, the mind spinner, ADD, the dreamer, those on the spectrum, nonverbals. You're focusing on what do they love to do and trying to help them figure out ways to do what they love to do. And it's just you're differentiating for that student.
Well, yeah, with ADD students, they tend to be easily distracted by everything. So one of the things that we try to work with the parents to make sure they have a designated office in the home, if that's possible. With multiple children in the home, that's often not possible. But if you give them a place that's their quote office or a designated place to work, they do better. And also allowing them to work on more than 2 things at a time. It seems like you're losing control, but you're really not. I mean, I've had students where I've said, okay, while you're doing your math, you can also rename files for me on this Chromebook, or you can also do this. You can also watch and help others. You can also upload pictures, because the ADHD kids, they just need a lot to do because their mind has a lot going on. Interestingly, for those on the autism spectrum, we have found in our research that those kids have, not all of those kids, many of those kids have flourished in the online because they've been able to just sit at the Chromebook themselves. They don't have students distracting them. They really like learning just with the one-on-one with the teacher or with the students that are in little boxes rather than in a room with them. That has been really interesting outcome of some of our research. And then nonverbals, again, giving them the time to work with that AAC device. And so they're able to feel successful in that online environment and they feel connected. Giving them opportunities to be humorous, asking them to be able to tell that knock joke that they want to tell again, or tell something unique that's happening with them. I think the biggest takeaway for those nonverbals is to really be patient and give them and teach and model for the other students in the room to give them the time they need to communicate effectively with others. And I think they really want to do that. Another way is to have them, if they don't want to talk to you, have them talk to a digital recorder. And then maybe they don't want to look at their class. Maybe they don't want to look at you. Have them talk to a recording device and post that. That's also been a really useful thing with nonverbals. Okay, real life examples of relationship building. So one of the things I do, two of my grandkids live in Texas. And so it's been sad and hard going across, trying to maintain a relationship with a 3-year-old and just a newborn last summer. So that one doesn't work very well. We have used FaceTime with them a lot, or Zoom with them a lot. But one of the things that was really effective with Olivia, who's 3, is we created an avatar on my phone together. And she created filters and she put herself with it. She gave herself a nose ring and a purple hat and red lips. And she was just really funny, earrings, the whole shebang. And then she would just practice looking at that avatar and singing Let It Go or singing one of those songs. And we were cracking up. But now she remembers that. And it's a place where we can build relationship from there. And when you start doing those kinds of things in a virtual setting, you have that relationship where you can talk back and forth using an avatar with your students even. And it's funny. In fact, Rebecca, one of the SLPs that I interviewed a couple times for some different studies, was saying that she uses filters with her TKs, her little ones, for everything. She uses Snapchat filters. She uses filters she can find in Zoom. There are filters, and I believe Google Meet, but I'm not an expert in Google Meet, so I can't be sure. Anyway, adding filters as she's working with her speech kids, she puts a crazy hat on herself, they put a crazy hat on themselves, and they work together. Oh, Google Duo has that feature also. It's great. It's funny in Google Duo. And that way you build a relationship that's silly, and they're in it with you. You're both being silly, and you can really work on some of those goals that they're trying to work on. You do whatever you can do, whatever it takes to connect. So what might you do differently than what you do now based on some of the ideas that we've presented today?
I'm sorry, never mind. I was gonna say something and I take it back.
Oh, okay, it's a quiet group. I'm not gonna make you talk. Some relationship building. So this is an example from a kindergarten teacher. This is a Chromebook, real kindergarten last year. She puts on the Apple song, and you can hear the students singing in the background. So this is an extraordinary kindergarten teacher who was great at using music and brain breaks with her 100% virtual class all of the 2020-2021 school year. The A song gets stuck in my head and it's painful, but it's really great for connecting those little ones. We've been known to play mobile hide and seek and mobile tag. And Rebecca, the SLP, was telling me she's done the same thing. So you each have a phone and you have the camera on your computer, and you run around your house using the phone or back and forth at the computer, playing. Literally, you're playing by yourself, but eventually you say, I got you, to the child, and my turn to hide. I found you. It's crazy. It's really crazy, but it does help bring connections, especially to the little ones. This is more for like your 3 to 5, 6-year-old set. And it's pretty hysterical to be running around hiding and seeking in your own houses and finding each other. You'll need a mom or a dad or an older sibling to help you with that one. But Rebecca was sharing with me also that those kinds of brain breaks really help keep her students wanting to learn, because they know there's going to be a time in a little bit where they're going to do something really fun. I did find for you, also we found for you, some really great virtual PE resources. So they're the best apps and online resources for PE to keep your students moving. That is linked right into the presentation, which is amazing. The things that they have come up with, the benefits of COVID. Okay, last one, whimsy, humor. Seriously, where did our whimsy go? I think I included have started taking life way too seriously with everything going on with social issues and COVID and natural disasters and hurricanes and tornadoes and fires and earthquakes. Oh my, it's just too much. The photo I have on the left is a kind of an example of what happens in my house. I hard boil eggs, I leave them out to cool. And when I come back, my husband has named each egg, or he puts little faces on them or puts hearts on them. It's really silly, but it makes me laugh. And, then I say, well, I ate Frank, or Eddie's next, and then Oscar. It's not a matter of anything except sometimes whimsy lightens the load for you and for your kids and for your families. Also, what I say a lot to my students, call me if you need to scream into a bag. I say that a lot. I tell them to email me with help, all in caps, in the subject line if they need me to drop everything and call them. But I do say, call me if you need to scream into a bag. I say that a lot. The other thing they know, and they can repeat it back to me now. So we're done. Go eat a cookie and then have dinner. Go eat a cookie and then do your homework. Go eat a cookie and then do this. Oh, that's coming up. Eat 3 cookies. Have a whole box of cookies. And they the humor of that and the permission, because, you know, we feel like we're grown-ups and we shouldn't eat dessert first. Students need to be given opportunities to break a few really non-essential rules, like eating a cookie before dinner or before you do your homework. And I have found those things, I have found that humor has lifted the spirits of my students, lifted the burden of not being able to do something, not wanting to communicate, not wanting to be present, really being, having severe problems with behaviors that is exacerbated because of the situation lately, bringing them back to a simpler lifetime using a little bit of, you know, rebellious, non-essential stuff. Kind of, it really helps them to come in line along with you. So last things we want you to know about. So we did some serious digging through Facebook groups. I found some really supportive Facebook groups for you. This one is self-contained SPED and distance education. It is an invitation only. No, it's a private group, but you can find the title of it, self-contained SPED and distance education, and then you can join. You just have to answer a few questions and then you can join. It really helps a lot to have a community of special educators that are all in it together with this virtual learning that we're doing. Another one, distance learning for educators. This one came about last year as well, and it's 24,000 members. It's private. You can join. You have to answer a few questions, but it's just some really well-meaning people that trying to make a difference. And then coming up in October, Sarah and I will be presenting resources for parents, including socio-emotional learning in education and support for parents who are supporting children either online or transitioning back to face-to-face, which we know has been difficult for many, many children. So that one's coming up in October. And there's more resources for you. Free resources for UDL and distance learning is a great one that we developed last year. It's a link to a Google Doc here for you. If you want more resources for distance learning, feel free to share them. That's why they're there. Share everything. It's fine. Chris Wenger, a friend and colleague of mine known as the Speech Dude on Twitter and Instagram. He has amazing energy. He is an amazing human being. He does boom cards for teachers. He does all kinds of really supportive activities and encouragement and information for SLP and therapy and teletherapy. I followed him. Well, I've known him for many, many years now, and he just really is one of those high energy people that really makes a difference in his world by being super encouraging and providing a lot of materials and sharing them out with the world. So he's amazing. Follow him on Instagram. You'll get a laugh too. Flourishing in a blended classroom. This is another quick sheet we developed over the COVID time, and that's on a Google Doc for your review. Other webinars I've done and Sarah has done with me and Chris Wenger has done with me. They're all here in a list, so you can look at those at leisure. I know Sarah was given some. We didn't even plan that, Sarah. You were given some advertisements. So here's the menus one that Sarah was talking about, and they're all right here in AbleNet's Facebook link for you. AT resource webinars. There's a whole bunch of different things that are pre-recorded here for different learners. And I know that many of you are here because you need professional development hours. And so here's more ways for you to get that professional development that you need. A UDL placement map. I just love this. We stumbled across this this year as well. And there are just so many multiple means of representation for multiple learners all along areas of disability. So we included this for you too. You can print it up. It gives you a quick cheat sheet of Universal Design for Learning, but also apps and technology resources that will support that learning for different types of learners. Okay, questions?
Yes. Nope, just a thank you. Resources are very helpful. No problem.
Thanks, Gretchen. And here's our email addresses if you're interested in more resources or if you have a particular question. We always love to hear from you and we love to help in any way we can. We know it's really tough out there for you, and we appreciate you giving us an hour of your day today. So we're here if you need anything. We'll hang out for just a few minutes just in case anyone has any other questions, and then we'll sign off in about 2 minutes or so. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Jennifer and Sarah. Appreciate all of your great information and the resources provided. I don't see any questions in the chat or the Q&A. So I think we will end the meeting here and we will see you all again, hopefully in October.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.